Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Hi, everybody. Alcoholic. My name is Ashley. Thanks so much for inviting me to share this morning with you. Um, Seems like a really robust and active home group of Alcoholics Anonymous. I appreciate hearing and feeling the warmth and the camaraderie. My sobriety date is the 30th of December, 2006, and I want to welcome anyone and everyone who is new to Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome. You never have to be alone again. That's been my experience here. And congratulations to all the birthday celebrants. Wow, so much long-term sobriety here this morning. It's very inspirational. Thank you. I am calling from the American South, North American South. I have been to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and my partner was helping me count. Maybe I thought it was 10 countries, and when we started counting, I think now it's like 15 or 16 countries. I was recently at the New Freedom Group in Johannesburg, South Africa. Oh, I just wept. It was precious. What a beautiful group. They take that signature AA blue from the big book and they make a beautiful tablecloth and they embroider it and they put the triangle inside the circle. And then someone puts like this beautiful felt with the name of the group, A New Freedom, on it. And that's at the table. They had Alcoholics Anonymous literature in 3 languages present, and that reminds me that our 7th tradition helps translate the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is where I learn about the program of recovery, into languages so that people all over the world, all cultures, can have access to the hope that is present in our 12 steps. I also went to a meeting in Cape Town, and that was a powerful group. Oh my gosh, the speaker, and I'm going to share about anonymity today, and I want to make sure that I really ground this for the newcomer, because the person who shared at the meeting in Cape Town, and I have permission to tell this part of his story, he was introduced to alcohol when he was being initiated as a boy in the bush. And when he woke up the next day, he had his first blackout drinking. They said, "Oh, you wrestled a lion, you're our hero." And when he got sober, he went to a building and he thought that the pretty white lady who smelled good owned the building, and that he shouldn't share because he would scare people. And then the white people shared and they scared him. And he has long-term sobriety today. So it's that identification, right? It's the principles above personalities that we talk about in the 12th tradition. And when I came in, I heard and said to myself a lot that the first word of the first step is we, is we. And I learned that the fellowship is the people, it's the community, it's going to meetings. And the program of recovery is the beginning of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to the last page in Dr. Bill's story. And that's where I find hope and solutions. When I came in, I felt really lonely. It even says in one of our books, The 12 and 12, I think in step 4, Bill writes, we were tortured by loneliness. And I would read some of the stories, the experience, strength, and hope, which is all these different kinds of people from all over the place who found a God of their own understanding, who helped them get sober and stay sober. And so at bedtime, which was a really hard time for me in early recovery, I would read one of those stories in the back of the book, and they all have a good ending. So I recommend those. And when a portion of the big book from chapter 5 was read this morning, and I was thinking about all our newcomers today, I memorized that. And I would walk around this land right here and say to myself, rarely. Oh, that moves me. Mm. Oh, that's so touching. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Oh, that moves me very deeply. There was this beautiful elderly gentleman in the home group in Franklin, Tennessee, where I got sober. It was a Monday through Friday, 12 noon, church basement, typical painted gray, metal chairs. And he had long-term sobriety. He physically resembled my paternal grandfather, so I paid extra attention, for my own sentimental reasons. when he shared. And he found a prayer, in that, and for newcomers and everybody. I've learned from different sponsors that the literature includes prayers, suggestions, muffs, warnings, death sentences. I stood at the turning point. Stood at the turning point. I asked God's protection and care with complete abandon. Yeah, so I would repeat that to myself a lot. I found it very comforting. And when I was first familiarizing myself with the steps, I'd be out in these woods and I'd be like, what comes next? Takes time. It takes time. Yeah, and I wanted to thank our celebrant. I think the gal who maybe had 35 years. I'm aware, and I don't necessarily want to be aware, that on Friday will be the anniversary of my mommy's passing. And I didn't just stay sober through that. It was easy. The drink does not occur to me. The compulsion to drink has been removed. It was removed pretty early. And I've gone through lots of different kinds of hardship: physical hardship, emotional hardship, family hardship, many kinds of hardship. In fact, I'm going to read from Bill's story. I'm reading that with my sponsor right now. And it never occurred to me to drink. This is Bill's story on page 15, toward the bottom. The joy of living we really have, and that's the theme of the 12th step, the joy of living, even under pressure and difficulty. And this is hilarious to me because Bill had been sober when he wrote this for 2.5 years, and there were about 100 sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous. So the authority with which he's speaking. It's very sweet. And so if each sober person has a family, it makes sense, the math that he's going to come in with. But he says, I have seen hundreds of families set their feet in the path. And I love that, in, not on, like get in the path, that really goes somewhere. Feuds and bitterness of all sorts wiped out. I've seen people come out of asylums and resume their vital means necessary for life, vital place in the lives of their families and communities. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which has not been overcome among us. We meet frequently so that newcomers may find the fellowship they seek. There is a vast amount of fun about it all. When I travel or I go to a meeting that's new to me, I usually, I get very flooded when I get lost. And that's something I've learned how to do in my recovery, is try to make contact with the local central office or the contact person for the group. Where's the parking lot? Which door to the building is there a sign on the door? And so, and when I get there, I listen for laughter. That's how I find the AA meeting. I listen for the laughter. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity. It is both and. There is hardship and there is joy. There is suffering and there is hope. Both and. But just underneath, there is a deadly earnestness. Faith has to work 24 hours a day and through us, or we perish. Most of us feel we need to look no further for utopia. We have found it with us right here and right now. And interestingly, Bill, he sent this draft around to different people to proofread it. And there was an archbishop to whom he sent it. And he said, would you change the word heaven to utopia or something? Like, that's a little much for me. But hey, utopia works for me. And as you read in the chapter to the agnostic, there's so many ways to try to find a personal name for that which has no definition, which is the God of my own understanding. We have it with us right here, right now. And our slogans help me with that. Just for today, one day at a time, easy does it. Each day, my friends, that's Ebby. Each day, my friends, simple talk in our kitchen multiplies itself in a widening circle of peace on earth. and goodwill. So welcome. And what I want to talk about today is my experience with anonymity. And I'm going to read from this pamphlet. And anonymity, as described in the 12th tradition, states anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. So the principles are the things I learned here, and the personality is the people. And I've learned from Debbie Davis that the original text was actually principles above personalities, but there was a mistake at the printing. And in Al-Anon, they do say principles above personalities in all their printed literature. And by the way, I just said Debbie's last name. And so part of this, what this cool pamphlet includes is a Q&A and a spot check inventory. And experience suggests that use last names within the fellowship, especially for election of group officers and other service jobs. You know, what it talks about in the 12 and 12 is that they were embarrassed to be alcoholics at the beginning, and anonymity was about shame. And then it became about, I am no more important than any other alcoholic. I'm not more important or less important. This is a fellowship of equals. And that no one should speak on behalf of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't represent AA. I'm not an ambassador of AA. I'm not the pinnacle of AA. And that I do need to know other alcoholics' last names if I want to come visit you in the hospital, or, you know, and it used to be when there were paper phone books, it was like you said a last name. So I'm too embarrassed. I don't know how to get it. But that guy who shared, man, I wish I could call him. I'll look him up in the phone book, you know. And my sharing about anonymity today is really coming from a place of vulnerability. And I was awake a lot overnight. I'm aware that it may have something to do with my mom's anniversary coming or just general vulnerability, but I've been very hurt by my anonymity being broken in meetings. I'm not talking about at the public level. My first sponsor, Maureen, you know, when I was thinking about anonymity, she said, and I get to see Maureen this weekend. She has 52 years. She lives up in Rhode Island, and I'm going to be going up there, and she's picking me up from the airport, cooking dinner for me. Yeah, maybe we'll get to a meeting together. You know, she said, Ashley, what's the worst thing someone could say about you if your anonymity is broken at the public level? You didn't feel so good and you got some help. You didn't feel so good and you got some help. Excuse my language. What a fucking relief. I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. You know, and Maureen also suggested that when I was in a meeting or a meeting at which I was new and people were breaking my anonymity, she just said, they're a tradition. I have a desire to stop drinking. I have a right to be here. Stick out your hand and say, hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name's Ashley. And, you know, I have managed this a lot of ways in 19 years. I have, when someone was breaking my anonymity in a meeting, said I'm just a garden variety alcohol. You know, I've used the traditions. I've used tradition 1, I've used tradition 3, I've used tradition 5, I've used tradition 11, I've used tradition 12. I've leaned big into tradition 8. We are non-professional. My profession is an outside issue. I've used tradition 10. I've tried to use the general warranties of the conference and not be personally punitive without a lot of success because I was protecting myself. And, you know, where I am with it today is that those principles are valid and those are appropriate and they are here. You know, if you ever have a chance to visit the General Service Office of Alcoholics Anonymous, Upper West Side of New York City, there's this incredible, huge poster of something Bill said, and it's really about anonymity as the spiritual foundation. But those are really ways of self-protection because when my anonymity is broken, I feel scared. I feel scared and I feel unsafe. I lose trust. And I feel lonely. And whatever that part of me is that could that kept coming back and wouldn't let people breaking my anonymity keep me out or run me off. It was part defiance, part belligerence. Like, I'm going to come in spite of your bad behavior. But it was really a need for a place to belong. It was a need for a place where there was hope, where there was identification, where there was a place to belong, a place where I could be cared for. At the closing of the Franklin AA Nooner, which I won't go to very much anymore. That meeting is not very strong anymore. But at the end of it, they would say, would someone please share the importance of a hope group? And a lot of times the kind of the pat response that someone would say, home group is where I get to know people and I let them get to know me. Where I get to know people and they get to know me. And when people shout at me at convention, when they shout my last name, when it really scares me. And that is knowing me in a way that has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with my first step, my third step, my fifth step, and this is also my first time to share about this in an AA meeting in this way. And I read in Bill Sees It, one of the dominance and dependence readings. And, I don't expect humans not to be human. I don't expect humans not to be surprised. Surprised is biologically hardwired into us. There are a few emotions that come from the origins of our species: disgust, shame, surprise, laughter. And I don't expect humans not to be surprised. And I notice a part of me that fights just came in. I do expect your sponsor to teach you to respect anonymity in a meeting. I do expect you to read this pamphlet. I do expect you to look at the traditions on the wall. I do expect you to make amends if you break my anonymity and to apologize to me and never to do it to another member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I do expect you to give that spiritual cloak of anonymity to the newcomer. The plumber, the gas station attendant, the flight attendant, the nurse you saw at the work-in clinic. It does not belong in Alcoholics Anonymous. It is an outside issue. There is a reading in one of the Al-Anon books that talks about Tradition 8, and it says, my education, my social background, my economic status, my mode of transportation, irrelevant. And just as Tradition 8 would say there are no greater thans, Tradition 12 says there are no lesser thans. And I guess I would share, I'm checking my motive right now and why I want to share a couple of these examples. And it's really for a spot check inventory, right? Because a lot of times when we come in, we hear like, if I spot it, I got it, and stuff like that. So when I share these things, it's really from a place of being scared, vulnerable, at a loss, not knowing how to respond, wanting to stay, but feeling run off. And so the question would be, how am I doing that to others in any way today? Or the invitation could be, how maybe have you done that to someone by making them different, putting them on a pedestal, or, disrespecting them? Washington State, someone asked me to autograph a book, an AA book at a meeting. I was at a meeting in Indianapolis, and the meeting, they sat in a square. So the chairs were like this. This woman would not stop talking, interrupting the meeting. And I just didn't know what to do. So I kept raising my voice and I was like, get a sponsor. I was at a meeting in Oregon. The person wouldn't let it go. And I was so scared. I pulled into another driveway on my way home because I thought they were following me home. And I was really scared. I've had people pass me work at meetings, related to my work. Like they would bring their professional, whatever, creative endeavor and slide it to me in a manila envelope. I mean, I feel that I was new when someone did that to me. It was bewildering and so confusing. I came home and I was like, do I have an obligation? Am I supposed to read this? Am I supposed to give this person professional access? And eventually I just put it in the trash because I was so confused and overwhelmed by it. It's been going on for 19 years. When I was at convention in Vancouver with my sponsor, who has been a delegate to the General Service Conference, it was helpful because they saw, and what they were like is, can you just be another bozo on the bus? Just be another bozo on the bus. And when I sent them their thank you note for being with me at convention, I got a bus decal of Vancouver and did a drawing of a bus in the road of happy destiny. And, so it's hard. It's hard. And so, my request is stop doing that to me. Tell your sponsees, read the literature, and don't do it to anybody else. Don't do it to anybody else for any reason. For any reason. And I love how Debbie says, Alcoholics Anonymous is not a place of commerce. I don't look for a job and I don't pass out my business card in whatever metaphoric way that means. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that I can't hire someone I know to, work with me in some way. But our principles guide this distinction. Our primary purpose is to stay sober, to have a vital spiritual experience, a psychic change, to have restoration, and to give hope to people whose lives suck. So I just want to read, because I said I would. Anonymity on a person-to-person basis. From its earliest days, AA has promised personal anonymity to all, no exceptions, all who attend meetings. Because its founders and first members were recovering alcoholics themselves, they knew from their own experience how ashamed most alcoholics are about their drinking, how fearful they are of public exposure. Those early AA members recognized that a firm assurance of confidentiality was imperative. Imperative means not just important, but first. Urgent, first, and important. Imperative. If they were to succeed in attracting and helping other alcoholics. Over the years, anonymity has proved one of the greatest gifts. That's a tall statement. We offer a lot of gifts in Alcoholics Anonymous that AA offers the suffering alcoholic. Without it, many would never attend their first meeting. Although the stigma has lessened to some degree, most newcomers still find admission of their alcoholism so painful that it is possible only in a protected environment. Anonymity is essential for this atmosphere of trust and openness. And I'm glad I read this because what I experienced is that no one protected me. No one protected me. And I was new, and even at 18, 17, whatever years, I always had to assert for myself my right to my anonymity. Sometimes I was strident. Sometimes I was aggressive. Sometimes I was clumsy. I was always scared because I came in with trust and openness. And this could easily be applied to all other kinds of situations, male sexual predation, gossip, what is euphemistically in the 12-step called 12-stepping. That's sanitized language for sexual predation and exploitation of vulnerability. So what I'm sharing here with this trust and openness can really be applied to a lot of topics. As valuable as privacy is to new members, it is noteworthy that most of them are eager to share their good news of their AA affiliation within their families. Such a disclosure, however, is always their own choice. You don't have the right. It's my choice. Stop it. Stop it. Only I decide. Stop it. Um, but always with the understanding that anonymity at the level of press, radio, TV, and films and other media technologies such as the internet is crucial for our continuing sobriety and growth at the personal and group levels. So then there's the spiritual significance of anonymity and stressing the equality. I mentioned we are a fellowship of equals, the quality of all AA members and the unity. And in tradition one, in the 12 and 12, it says unity is our most important. And I was like, oh, I would have thought it was anonymity, but unity is heavily emphasized too, right? Anonymity serves as the spiritual foundation of our fellowships. Back in 1948, Bill W., our co-founder, wrote, "One may say that anonymity is the spiritual base, the sure key to the rest of all our traditions. Anonymity has come to stand for prudence and, most importantly, self-effacement, true consideration for the newcomer if they desire to be nameless, a vital protection against the misuse of the name Alcoholics Anonymous, and that each of us a constant reminder that principles come before personalities. Such is the wide scope of this all-embracing principle. It is the cornerstone of our security. I want to feel secure when I come in. When I did my first fourth step, I think it's a very cute story. I was just farting around with my fourth step and I heard a tape actually. Someone here in Nashville said, fourth step takes a year or a fourth step takes a Saturday in the library. I was like, okay, I'll go to the library with a pencil and do my fourth step. And here's a cool story. I was actually going to St. Louis, and I was on an airplane, and I had my big book, and I was starting. And the flight attendant, she just said, "I recognize that book you're reading." How cool. Evidence of my higher power. So my God box right now is actually evidence of my higher power more than, things that are on my mind and troubling me or that I want to turn over. I'm writing down evidence of my higher power and putting it in this box. That's evidence of higher power to me, right? And what a cool way to practice anonymity in public. I recognize it. So I did my fourth step in St. Louis, and when I came back, Maureen was traveling, and she wasn't available to hear my fifth step, and it says, don't sit on it. I've been sitting on it, And I asked this woman, Roxy, from the AA Nooner here, if she would hear my fifth step, security. Security. Roxy is still my friend. We go to the Leapers Fork Friday night and a Wednesday together. Adore Roxy. At a deeper level, it points us to still greater self-renunciation. Self-renunciation, like that impulse, like we talk about pausing, all in what is sometimes known as the morning pages for newcomers 86 to 88, like pause, 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 pause. And if you're in in-person meetings and they have the slogans on the wall, it says think. It doesn't mean obsess. It means pause. Think, pause. Self-renunciation. When I have that impulse to treat anyone as special or different or encroach upon their privacy, their self-renunciation, let it go. Not my will, but thine be done. And then there are some questions and answers, and there's a whole section on personal anonymity. What should I tell my loved ones about protecting the anonymity of AA members they may meet? What if I see public figures at meetings? Answer. Like everyone else, public figures should have the protection of anonymity to the extent they desire it. You'll notice on this flyer, I didn't use the last initial. I think it's an outside issue, and I think it invites a scrutiny or a conversation that I fiercely do not want. And my last initial used to be on flyers and stuff, and I don't like it. I don't want it anymore. And I'm really coming into this more clarity since I let myself feel the vulnerability of feeling scared and not just like weaponizing the principles to make people stop acting wrong. And another thing is, I grew up with the family disease of alcoholism, and there's a part of me that's like, I don't choose between my mom and my dad. It's the both and. I love everybody. So if I do anything, like I'm starting to use both of my family last names right now in my personal life, and not just the one name that was forced on me. So there's a deeper childhood story there about that. Then it goes on, spot check inventory on page 11 of the anonymity pamphlet. Facts about anonymity and experience suggest respect the right of other members to maintain their own anonymity at whatever levels they wish. Yeah, it's respect, right? Respect. I think that we have a lot of, like, in the fourth tradition, right? You might say we all have the right to be wrong, or respect. We learn boundaries, learn to respect someone's no, learn to respect my own limits, And so, yeah, let's see. I think I've just got 2 or 3 minutes left. So thank you for letting me share about that. I would suggest, you could explicitly talk about anonymity, but really underneath it is safety. Do you feel safe? Do you feel open and trust? And if you don't, how can you care for those feelings? And how can you help establish more safety and openness and trust? And if you have a service position at your home group, would you be willing to introduce this pamphlet as a topic for discussion at one of your meetings? Like, read the pamphlet. Are you willing to read it with your sponsees? Read it with your sponsor? And if you have anyone who's treated differently for any reason, are you willing to do that differently? I'm going to close with a quote from, I'm going to cry again. This book, Experience, Strength, and Hope, is stories from the big books of Alcoholics Anonymous that have been removed from our basic text, the Blue Book, and saved in a special collection. And these are stories from throughout AA's entire history. And my sponsor was telling me about this particular story from an AA member. It's called Join the Tribe. And this story was removed from the big book initially because this person is indigenous, they're First Nations, and English is their second language. And so when he wrote his story, he was like writing in English for the first time. And there was some concern from the literature committee that it stereotyped or could be an invitation to ridicule someone, which was kind of respectful awareness. But I'd also ask him, like, don't just think on his behalf, but ask him. But his closing here is very precious to me, and it's on, as I said, it's called Join the Tribe, and it's page 338. The sober Indian say to sick, red-eyed alcoholic who want good medicine, put cork in bottle. No drunk hopeless. If they want to follow guide along right trail, go to AA meetings. Listen, not just hear noise. Get sponsor. Get phone numbers. Call friend in AA when bad thoughts come. It touches me so much. Oof, God, it touches me so much. Let group spirit of love and understanding protect you. Take my hand. Walk with me up 12 steps of AA to peace. So beautiful. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Thanks. Peace be with you. I pass.